Hey YouTube, I'm Sergeant Indy. Welcome back to my turn-based strategy tutorial for GameMaker Studio. This video we're going to be programming the basis for an important UI element, buttons. We're going to set up a button so that a player can manually end their turn. We'll also be building some of the basic infrastructure we're going to need so that our cleric and wizard can cast spells with buttons. Now, the first thing we're going to do is open up our cursor draw event. And right up in here, this if hover node does not equal no one, where we're displaying our hover node information in the top left corner. We're going to get rid of all that. Our node stuff, we know that's working right. We don't need this debug information anymore. Just grab it all up and delete it. We're going to take this if selected actor equals no one, our selected actor information. We're going to move that to the top left corner instead. So, just some simple updates to this. We want it to be the name, which is drawn first. We want that to be drawn at 0, 0, right up in the top. And we want it to be drawn to, this is the box first. It's going to start at the top left, and we want it to go to just to string height. So, 0, 0, string width, string height, false. We want this one to be drawn at 16, rather than all the way at the bottom, minus 16. We want this to be at 16 plus, and then this one is going to be at 32, and then it's going to be 32 plus string height. Okay, so 0, 16, 32. Got to do the same thing down here with this stuff. This one's going to be drawn at 0, 0. This one's going to be drawn at 16, and this final one is going to be drawn at 32. Great. Now, we're going to run into another issue here with our selector sprite. See, when we mouse over a button, we don't want this drawn over the button, a little weird yellow-orange square drawn over our button. So we need to get rid of this. We're not going to get rid of it entirely, but we're going to get it out of here, and then we're going to create an object that will draw that sprite for us. So, green check out of here, but before we leave, we need to update our depth. -1 isn't deep enough, high enough, really. We're going to set it to -6 because we're going to make our buttons at -5 and so forth. We need this to be on top. So, green check out of here, we're good. Create a new object, call this oSelector, give it the appropriate sprite. We're going to set its depth to -5, or no, -2. That's right. Now, add event, step, end step, drag on a piece of code. If oCursor dot hover node doesn't equal no one, then x equals oCursor. Yeah, oCursor dot hover node dot x, and y equals oCursor. Wow, off to a bad start, aren't we? I'm going to just let it autocomplete. Hover node dot y. Okay, now, currently our cursor pretty much always has a hover node. That's not going to be the case. When our cursor goes over our button, we're going to set our hover node to nobody. Other than that, it's going to have a hover node, obviously. Wow, I'm typing funny. I'm not thinking straight. This is a rough video for me so far. Now, let's talk about this step event, this end step, right? Let's talk about that. There are 3 step events in GameMaker. We've been typically using the normal step event, and that's where most of a game's code is going to live, in the step event. There's also a begin step and an end step, and they're essentially done in that order. Begin step, step, then end step. If you have an important bit of code that you need to be sure is done before anything else, you do it in the begin step. In our case, our cursor updates its XY position in the step event. It also updates its hover node in the step event. So we want to make sure that that happens before this happens. So we're putting it in the end step. That way, our selector will stay in lockstep with our cursor. Another important note is that I'm pretty sure that the end step comes after GameMaker Studio does its collision events. So if you're using those, this can be a pretty handy tool for you. Let's green check out of here and let's create a draw event. Now, if oCursor dot hover node doesn't equal no one. Draw self. Just like that. Now, it'll only draw itself when the cursor has a hover node. Otherwise, it won't. Let's green check out of here. My mouse is driving me crazy. Its cord is wiggling up where I'm trying to type. It's driving me nuts. Okay, green check out of there. Let's make a sprite. We'll call this S button default. And this is going to be the default sprite for our buttons. We don't want to see this in the actual game. We're going to see it in the game for a while. Let's edit sprite. We're going to make it big so it's easy to click on. 64 by 64. Hit OK. Let's get black on our left, white on our right. We're going to make the second box. Let's zoom in enough that we can see what we're doing. We're going to grab top pixel down to the bottom. And we want 2 pixels wide for our border so it's nice and thick. And like I said, we don't want to see this. A lot of game companies do this. This is essentially placeholder. If we see this, we know something went wrong. And also, before we make the actual art for whatever it is we're making a button for, this will be a decent stand-in. So I'm just going to make a big circle. I'm going to put a smiley face on it. There we go. There's my default button. Just be silly with it, because like I said, this doesn't really matter. Wow, that looks terrible. Hey, close enough. Green check out of here and out of here. We want to center it with the origin. So that's good. Green check like that. Now we're going to make a font. So this is going to be our button, or our default button. But we're going to have a button that's going to have an icon for whatever we've got. And we want to draw its hotkey in the top right corner so the players know, oh, I can press that and this thing will happen if I want to. So we're going to make a font just for that, not a script, a font. Create font, we're going to call it F hotkey, and this needs to be pretty small. Let's make it Courier New, like everything else, so everything's nice and uniform. Courier New, I'm going to set the size to 9, and obviously that's super small, it's hard to read, so we're going to make it bold so it stands out a bit better, and hit OK. Now we can create our button object. Create O button. Give it the appropriate sprite. And we're going to set its depth to -5, so it's on top of everything else. Now we need a create event. Drag in a code block. And this thing's going to need 3 pieces of information. It's going to need a title, as in the title of the action. I'm going to reference everything in this video we're only making one button. We're making the end turn button. So the title would be end turn. We're going to give it some default error. So if we see error, something went wrong. Text, button did not receive information. Pretty sure I spelled receive right. And then hotkey equals error. So if we see any of this, we'll know something went wrong. But like the button, what we want to see is a title of end turn, a text of something like ends the turn of current character, and the hotkey will be X for all of this. But we're setting all this up with our error information so that if we see that, we know something went wrong. Green check out of here, add event, draw, drag into code, and of course, like I said earlier, we want this to draw itself. And then we want it to draw its hotkey in its top right corner. So draw, set, font, F hotkey, draw, set, color, C_black, draw, text, X plus 22, and remember its origin is in the center, so Y minus 32, string, hotkey. There we go. That should draw it in the top right corner for us. Now, remember, these draw sets, they don't set for this object, they set for the entire draw event, so we need to reset those back to our default. So draw, set, color, C_white, and draw, set, color, or font, F default. Okay, that'll Draw itself, draw the hotkey in the top right corner. Great. Close that out. Close that out. Now we need to go into our actor create event, and it needs a couple of variables. So actor create. We're going to go down to where the special action variables are. We're going to add a new category of variables. Spell and action variables. There's going to be a lot more here, but for now we just need readied action equals error. Now, we're going to have a button, and it's going to have an action. That action is going to be end turn. When we click on that button, it's going to load this readied action so that the actor knows, okay, I'm about to perform this. But we don't just want to press the hotkey and have it happen instantly. Player might accidentally click the wrong button. So we're going to make like some sort of confirmation window comes up. So it's going to be click the button, we're going to load the action and create a confirmation window. And then when they click the confirm button on that confirmation window, they'll perform this readied action. So that's why this is set up like that. Now below the initiative variables, we're going to set up variables related to buttons. And I'm sorry, I'm way down at the bottom. Let's get the text right back up top so it's easier to see. So default actions. We're going to create a list of default actions. That's ds list create. And we only have one default action, ds list add default actions end turn. Now I'm setting it up like this. We've only got the one. We could just manually load end turn when we go to build the buttons, but some games have more than one default action. We're only going to have the one, but like if we talk about XCOM 2, shoot is a default action. All soldiers can shoot, and when you press that button, it lets you cycle through your targets. They all have like hunker down, which lets them duck down behind their cover to like get a defensive boost. They've all got overwatch, which lets them, on the bad guy's turn when they move, it lets them shoot at them during their turn. So we've only got the one default action. You might set up a game with more, so that's why I've got this set up with a list with just one item in it. So that's fine. Let's green check out of here. Now let's set up another UI element, that confirmation box I was just talking about. So we're going to have our end turn button, and when you click it, we don't want the turn to instantly end because the player might have made a mistake in clicking it. So we're going to make a confirmation window. So this sprite is going to be the button for that window. So S confirm button, edit sprite, new sprite. We're going to make it 96 by 32, so it's nice and long and easy to click. Hit OK. We're going to flip the left and right, so we want white on left, black on right, because we want to make a big black window that displays the text of like end turn and ends the turn of the selected actor, and then we can click the confirm button. This object's going to do all that, so we want this to be a white border, black button. Grab the box tool, second one, and we want this 2 pixels wide again for a nice bold border. And we're just going to hit this text tool and this color only part, click that. Courier new, bold, size 12, hit OK. And it doesn't matter where you click in here because it'll let you move it afterwards. So I'm going to click here, and we want this to say confirm. Hit enter, and it'll let you drag it into place. Just get it somewhere in the center. Now, this doesn't look great right now because of the little anti-aliasing. It looks a little fuzzy. Trust me, it's going to look fine. Green check, and that's what it'll look like in game. Looks great. Green check. Now we want this to be centered left to right, but we want it to be all the way at the bottom, top to bottom. So 48 and 31 is where we want our origin to be. Hit OK. Now we're going to make an object for this button. So create object, confirm button, give it the appropriate sprite. We want to set its depth to -5 like the other buttons, and we're going to make a create event. Drag in a block of code. Now this needs the same exact information that the other buttons need. So title, error, text equals information not passed. Oops, not a colon, semicolon. hotkey equals error. Okay, now I'm going to make a draw event. Drag in a block of code, and again, we want this thing to, it's going to be placed at the bottom center of the screen, or at the bottom center of the game window, and it's going to draw a big black box up around itself, and it's going to say the title, and then the text, and it's going to have the confirm button at the bottom there. So, draw, set, color, C_black, draw rectangle. We want this to be x minus 256. Remember, its origin is in the center, and it draws from there. So 256 pixels to the left, 128 pixels up, so y minus 128. And then x plus 256, y, draw all the way down to the bottom, where its origin's at, and false. Draw, set, color, C_white. Draw, set, font. We want our title to be nice and big, so we're going to go with F crit. Draw, set, H align. Now this is a new thing for us. Let's type it out and I'll explain it. FA center. Now, I'm pretty sure FA stands for font alignment or something like that. But what draw, set, align does is it sets where the text is drawn from. The default is FA left. So, like if we wanted to draw this text here, right? With standard default, we need to get this grid coordinate to draw it from the left side. FA center, in order to draw this text here, we would need to have it like around there, because it draws from the center of the bit of text you're doing. So we're going to have our big black window, and we're going to have the title and the text centered in that window. So that's where we're setting our align to center. Draw text, x, y minus 128, title. If draw, set, font, F default. Now let's do that. Let's do temp offset. We're gonna have that equal to string height title, and we need to do this before we set the default, because string height can only grab and calculate how tall a bit of text is going to be based off of what it knows the font to be. So we're going to get that string height title, and now we want it to be x, or oh gosh, what am I doing? We set the font to default, then draw text x, and then we want it kind of at the same place, y minus 128 plus temp offset. So that'll offset, and you know what, let's do it like a couple pixels lower now that I'm thinking about it. Y minus 126 plus temp offset, and then text. Okay, so that'll draw the, okay, so F crit, nice big and bold, we're drawing the title. End turn, big bold letters, and then we're going to do default text, a little smaller below it, ends turn of current character. That's fine, draw text. We've got to reset our draw, set, H align to FA left, that's the default, and then draw self. So, draw a rectangle, draw the title in big bold letters, draw the text in smaller letters, reset the H align, draw ourselves. Great. That took way too long to type out and explain. I'm sorry about that. Now we're going to need 4 scripts. We're going to need one to create the buttons. That's pretty straightforward. We're going to need another to perform the buttons. And what that's going to do is essentially you click the button, it's going to load the information into the player, or into the actor. And then we need a script to perform the action loaded in the actor. 3 scripts so far. The 4th script is to destroy all the buttons when we're done with them. And we're going to go back and forth between the first 3 of those scripts pretty constantly in the next video when we set up our spells. So let's open up our little scripts folder and let's create a script. Call this create buttons. Now we need one argument passed into this. Argument 0 is going to be the actor whose buttons to create. And that's going to be whoever's turn it is. We're going to be creating their buttons. So actor equals argument 0. And now we need to make a list of buttons. This sounds silly. We've got a default actions list in our actor, and we're going to take that and we're going to load this into the button list. It's one thing in a list by itself, and we're loading it into a second list. That seems really silly. It is really silly. But next video, our cleric and our wizard are going to have a spell list, and that's also going to be loaded into our button list. So this makes sense in the long run. Bear with me for now. So for I equals 0, I less than ds list size, actor.default actions, I plus equals 1, ds list add button list. Oh my gosh, I got so distracted describing it. Button list equals ds list create. Got so wrapped up in talking about it, I never actually made the button list. So we're going to add our default actions to the button list. So button list and then ds list find value, actor.default actions, two of those. There we go. And again, we've only got the one default action, but if you had more than one default action, this is what you'd want, and that's why I set it up like this. Now, we need to set up where we're going to draw the buttons. We want them drawn at the bottom of the screen, but not quite touching the bottom of the screen. So button Y equals room height minus 48. Button X equals, we want it centered, so room width divided by 2. Well, we don't just want it centered. We're only drawing one button for now, so that would do. But in the long run, like when we have spells or whatever, we're going to have a lot more buttons. So we need to draw it with an offset, like starting here and draw them boop, 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 boop to the left so that the buttons as a group are centered at the bottom of the screen. So we'll make that offset now, even though we won't need it till next video. ds list size. Make sure you got two parens here. We're going to do some math. Button list minus 1 times 48. So this will give us a good offset for if we've got more than one button. Now for what we need to do is build all of the buttons in the button list. So for I equals 0, I less than ds list size button list, I plus equals 1, yes, button equals ds list find value, button list I. So we're storing the button into here, and then switch button. We've only got the one for now, but case end turn colon break with instance create button X plus I times 96. So this is going to set an offset to the left depending on how many buttons we are. And now with each button we create, we're going to create it a bit more progressively to the right. Button Y, O button, two parens, squigglies, title equals end turn. No, we want this in big bold letters. End turn. Text equals finish turn of current character. And hotkey. Our end turn hotkey is going to equal X. Okay. Now, we have created a list. We've created a data structure. We need to get rid of it. So ds list destroy button list. Okay, now when it's a character's turn, we'll call this, it'll create a button. Now we need a second script to perform that button and load the information into our character. Leave this open for just a second. Go ahead and pause it if you're falling behind. Open up a new script. Call it perform buttons. This one needs 2 arguments passed to it. Argument 1, or argument 0, being the actor performing the action. Argument 0, the actor performing the action. Argument 1 is going to be the button, the button to be performed. So, actor equals argument 0. Button equals argument 1. Switch button.title. That's the easiest way to differentiate between the buttons. When we give it a title currently, all we've got is end turn. Let's do that. Case, end turn, colon, break. Here we're going to load all that information to the actor like I talked about. So actor, actor.state equals begin action. Actor.readied action, that variable we just made earlier, equals end turn. Actor.targeting type equals none. Now, we're not going to set up this targeting type yet. We're just setting this up so we don't have to change this block in the next video. So this is going to do nothing for now. Bear with me. Now, we've clicked a button. We need to create the confirmation button now. So with instance create, and we want it in the middle of the screen, left to right. So room width divided by 2. We want it at the bottom of the screen. So room height for the Y coordinate. And then O confirm button. 2 parens, some squigglies. Title equals other.button.title. Text equals other.button.text. And hotkey, I'm sure you guys know where this is going. Other.button.hotkey. Now, we've clicked the button. We've built our confirmation window. What we need to do now is wipe our nodes, because we don't need to see all the nodes that we see. We just need to see the ones that are pertaining to the confirmation button, which for end turn are none. And also we need to wipe buttons. Now this is showing an error because that doesn't exist yet, but it will in just a second. Leave it open for a second. We're going to create that script now. Wipe buttons. Okay, this one's going to be really easy, really straightforward. So with O button, instance destroy. And now also our cursor is going to have, we've got a hover node variable for whatever node we're hovering over. We're going to have a hover button variable. And so when we destroy the buttons, we need to clear that out too. So O cursor dot hover button equals no one. That's it. Real easy. Green check. Last script. So we have created our buttons. When we click that button, we load the information into the actor and create a confirmation window. Now, when we activate the confirmation window by clicking the confirm button, we need to actually perform the action. So, 2 arguments, same as the last time. The actor performing the action and the action to be performed. So, argument 0 is actor performing the action. Argument 1 is action to be performed. Actor equals argument 0. Action equals argument 1. Switch action case end turn break. Actor.state equals end turn, and actor.action timer equals 20. So it doesn't just end and go to the next turn immediately. We want a little bit of a break in there. So let's green check out of here. Now, for all of this to actually work, a few things need to happen. Our actors need a couple of new states and some minor touch-up with variable naming. And our cursor needs to be able to handle these buttons. So let's get started on that now. Did I not? Oops. This one's called perform action. Gosh, I'm really sorry about that. Yeah, perform action, and we do all of this. I could have sworn I'd saved that. Or typed that in. So we're going to go into our actor create event now. And we're going to go down to where we've got these attack variables. We've got attack timer. I made a mistake. So we're going to rename this to action timer. So it's a bit more versatile. See, entirely my mistake. I was planning this part of the tutorial when I started thinking, because I had action timer and attack timer. I was like, why do I have two variables that do essentially the same thing? So I changed it. We're going to use this for more than just attacks. And unfortunately, that means we've got some touching up to do. I apologize, but this makes a lot more sense than what I had planned initially. So let's fix all of this now. Green check out of here. This will let us show off the find and replace, though. We're going to go into our actor step event. Hit Control F. Find attack timer. And we're going to replace that with action timer. Now, hit replace all. And that should have cleared everything up on its own. Where do we... I've lost where they're at. There we go. There's one of them. It will replace all of them. Now, you have to be really careful with the find and replace tool. It's really powerful, and it's easy to make a mistake with it. So make sure you visually confirm action timer. It's a really powerful tool, and it helps you clean up all your variables, like if you need to rename something, but it is not a toy. It will absolutely ruin your code if you make a mistake with it. So green check out of here and here. The only other place we've ever used the attack timer variable is in our cursor. We're going to go to our cursor step event and do the same thing. Control F, find attack timer, and we're going to replace that with action timer. And make sure everything's good and replace all. Just like that. We can see action timer here. That's great. Green check out of here and here. Let's go back into our actor, and we're going to add those new states now. So go to the step, and all the way down at the bottom, below end attack, we're going to do a new set of states. So case, begin action. Now, that's all that's going to do. Nothing. We don't really need this. We're going to go ahead and put this in here for now. It doesn't do anything. It's just a placeholder. Doesn't need to exist. If we fed the actor begin action as a state and this wasn't here, it would just do nothing. But this is going to be necessary next video, so I figured I'd just put it there for the sake of having it there as a placeholder. Case end action, or no, perform action, break. This is where it's going to actually perform the action. So all this is going to do is perform action, ID, ready action. And then we want it to wipe nodes. And then here we want our case end action. And I will scroll up, break, so that we don't get at the bottom of the screen, make it easier to see. In the end action, we're going to do essentially the exact same thing that we do here. We're going to count down the action timer, and then we're going to do the action. So, action timer minus equals 1. If action timer is less than or equal to 0, state equals idle. If actions are greater than 0, then we're going to do movement range. Remember, we need to pass the node we're standing on, our move variable, and our actions. So map grid X, grid Y, move actions. That's fine, yeah. And then else So if we're now out of actions, then state equals idle, and ogame.current_actor equals no one, just like that. Finally, we need an end turn state. Now, end turn is special, right? All of the other ones aren't going to have a state. Like when we cast Magic Missile, there's not going to be a state here for Magic Missile. It's just going to be handled with the perform action part. I decided to make end turn its own special state because sometimes, like, some of these things you might feel like oh, we attacked and the turn ended too quickly. So instead, you could just pass them to end turn, and it'll give a little bit more of a delay before the next turn starts. And it's a little bit of delay here and there between actions is good. It gives the player time to like digest what's going on, to watch the damage numbers pop up or whatever. So I figured end turn is special enough, I'd give it its own state. I'm pretty sure this is all I'm going to use it for here in this tutorial, but you know, I figured I'd show it off and talk about it because it is a good idea, and you guys might want to come up with something like that. So this is how you'd set something like that up. So count down the action timer. If it's less than 0, oCursor.selectedActor equals no one. oGame.currentActor equals no one. And state equals idle. And I just realized we have to do the same thing here. See, when the player's performing an action, when the player moves, we clear the cursor. We can't do that when we're performing an action because we need to hold on to whose turn it is with the cursor so that it can call, you know, like the confirmation button or whatever else and tell it whose turn it is. So normally, like at the end attack, that's all we needed to do because the cursor didn't have us selected. We just say, hey, game, next turn. But in here, when it's not our turn anymore, we do need to do that. So oCursor.selectedActor equals no one. Of course, there wouldn't be any nodes selected. You couldn't actually do anything even with that character selected, but it's good to just pass it off. That way it won't show up here even when like the enemy's going or whatever. So let's green check out of here. We're all done now. We're going to go into our cursor create event. If you remember earlier, we talked about a hover button. So let's make that now. Hover button equals no one. And also while we're in here, we've created this selector, but we haven't actually put an instance of it in the room yet. So our game creates the cursor. Now cursor is going to create the selector. So instance create. Darn autocomplete. Be the death of me yet. 000 selector. There we go. That'll create him. Green check out of here. Now we need to go into our step event. We need to do a lot of stuff to interact with these buttons. So first thing we're going to do is right below here where we set up our hover node, we're going to set up our hover button. If instance place x, y, o button. And this is kind of a weird way to do this. I'll explain in just a second. Hover button equals instance place x, y, o button. So this is a little weird. Like we could have just done hover button because instance place will return no one if there's no one there. And if we're not hovering over something, we're just going to go else hover button equals no one. So this is weird. Like we could have just done that in the first place without this if statement. Just trust me, I did it like this for a reason. We're going to fill this out a bit more later. So hover node equals no one. So if we're hovering over a button, clear the hover node. We don't want a hover node if we're hovering on a button. Only want to select or interact with one thing at a time. So we got rid of our left mouse click event, gosh, several videos ago when we did the turn order, I think. So we need to put it back now, and it's only going to relate to these buttons. So if mouse check pressed MB left, mouse check button pressed. There we go. And this needs to be a squiggly, not a... I'm not sure what do you call that? Just a line? I have no idea what that's called, actually. So if we're doing a left click, so if selected actor doesn't equal no one, and hover button doesn't equal no one. And this is redundant, but sometimes redundancy is okay. Like, we're never going to have a button if we don't have a selected actor. But just in case something goes wrong or whatever, I like the redundancy. Perform buttons, selected actor, and hover button, because we need to pass a button and we need to pass an actor. That's what we're going to pass there. Great. Now, if instance place x, y, o confirm button selected actor dot state equals perform action, and with o confirm button, we don't need it anymore because we've clicked on it, instance destroy. Okay, so we click on a button, that's going to do the perform buttons, which will create this, and then if we click on that, we'll kill the button and we'll make the actor do whatever action that the button loaded into it. Great. Now, we're not quite done here. We need to go through this entire right click, and every time we wipe the nodes, we also need to wipe the buttons. Wipe buttons. All of them. Keep scrolling. There's these two, and then in here with the case range, there's another one. Wipe buttons, and then here in the melee, right here, there's one. Wipe buttons, and down here at the bottom, this is the last one. Wipe buttons. I'm feeling like that's, I think that's all of them, but I'm going to go back and give one more visual check. This one at the bottom. Then we've got this one with this if temp x, temp y are adjacency check. Got one there. Then in ranged, we've got one. And then in both cases of the movement part, we've got them. Okay, that looks like all of them. Now, green check out of here. A bit of cleanup, right? Green check here. Our actor, if you'll recall, a couple of videos ago. Whoa, I don't want to rename him. Get him open. In our draw event, we have a dependency here where if it's our turn, if it's this actor's turn, it depends on the cursor having a hover node. If there isn't a hover node, if this will completely break. It'll throw an error at us. We don't want that. So, really simple fix. And oCursor dot hover node doesn't equal no one. Then that'll run. So if we're hovering over a button, we don't want to draw a line to it. We don't want to draw a line to an enemy. If we don't, right? So yeah, that's fine. Just like that. Easy. Now, if any of you guys have been paying attention, you'll notice we've never actually created our buttons yet. We've never called that script. Where are we going to do that? Well, at first, I was just going to go into the places in the code where we would create buttons, and I started thinking and I realized every single place we're creating buttons, we're also doing movement range. Now, that's not true for wipe buttons and wipe nodes. That's not true there. But every single time we're doing movement range, we're also creating buttons. And also, there's an error in movement range right now. So let's go to movement range, and we'll take care of both of those things at once. So all the way down at the bottom, if you'll recall, the node the actor is standing on is called start. So we can get that actor's ID by doing start.occupant. So all the way down at the bottom, we're going to do create buttons, and then we're going to do start.occupant. Now, I'm not sure if anybody's noticed, there is an error in this code. I actually fixed it in my version a while ago. But that's the version, like, I've got, this is video 12. I've got 13 versions of this game right now, because every video I save it in its own little small compartment in case I need to re-record it, or if anybody finds an error or has a problem, I can go back and work with just that bit of code and see what's wrong and help them out. So my main version where I'm writing these tutorials from is fixed, but not here. Currently, when it's your turn, the node you're standing on is a movement node. And if you right-click on it, the actor tries to make a path from where he's standing to where he's standing, which completes instantly. But it doesn't do the end path action. So essentially what happens is that actor just sort of blanks out, and it never goes to the next turn, it never anything. So we need to fix that. So start.moveNode equals false. That's all we got to do. Now you can no longer click on the tile that you're standing on and have it break. Great. Also, every time we do movement range, we'll create our buttons. So this is awesome. Green check out of here. Let's run the game, and hopefully I haven't made any errors. Okay, great. So it's Danny's turn. I don't want to move Danny. I don't want to attack with Danny. I like Danny how he's at. So let's go over here and let's click End Turn. That cleared that out. Finish the turn of the current character. Confirm. That guy's turn, that guy's turn. Looks like everything worked great. So now it's Sandy's turn. I don't want to move Sandy or do anything. Actually, Sandy, let's attack that guy. I don't want to move Sandy. It's End Turn. Confirm. Moved on to the next turn. Great. But this is a little bland. Click this, click that. Players want hotkeys. We've got it displayed in the corner. So let's set that out. Let's finalize that, right? And we're also going to give this button a proper sprite while we're at it. So let's close this out. And that's the first thing we're going to do. Let's go in here. We're going to button default. Let's duplicate that. We'll call this S button end turn. Edit sprite. Go in here. And I'm just going to grab the last square tool with white selected. And I'm just going to blank out that smiley face completely. And then I'm going to grab the first tool and a color I'm not going to use. And we're just going to make a big black X in the center of this for end turn. So I'm just going to grab like that. And that'll be like a guide for me to do this X because it's going to be pretty wonky looking otherwise. And we're just going to do several lines back and forth, X through the center. Make it nice and bold and easy to see. And the square essentially acts as a guide for us to do that. And I'm actually not sure if this is even centered or not, but I think it'll look good enough for the purposes of this tutorial. And if you want to get more artistic with it or do something fancy, you're more than welcome to. Go ahead and pause the video and take all the time you need. But once you're done with that, you no longer need the guide. Grab our F tool and set it to white, and we'll just fill all of our blues, and just like that, green check mark. Okay, so now we need to go into our create buttons, and we need to give it the appropriate sprite. So, sprite index equals S button end turn. Cool, so now our button will have the proper X sprite. And you know, we could run it right now and just make sure that that's working. And it is. And everything's working fine. Great. Okay, now we need to go into our cursor step event and we need to make these hotkeys work. So let's go in there. We're going to handle everything in the cursor. Almost all of our direct player interaction is going to be handled through this cursor, whether it's hotkeys or not, because it's just easier to group it all here. So we've got this instance place where we do our hover node, hover button stuff. Right before that, we're going to do with confirm button. If keyboard check pressed BK enter, or keyboard check pressed ORD hotkey. Whoops, there we go. Other.selected actor.state equals perform action and instance, whoops, destroy. Okay, so if we activate the confirm button with either the enter key, because I don't know, when I see a confirmed button down there, I think enter key, or the hotkey that was passed to it from the button, we can just perform the action, destroy the instance, just like we clicked on it, just like that. Now, below this instance place here, we want with O button. If keyboard check pressed ord hotkey, and you need 3 parens to get out of this mess. Perform buttons O cursor dot selected actor, and we're going to pass our own ID because this we're doing it from the buttons perspective. Now, let's talk about this real quick, right? Every time you press a keyboard, GameMaker Studio essentially flags that key as having been pressed. So if we did this button part, right, with O button, where we perform buttons, which creates a confirm button, if we did this before we did this, like if we just, here, I'll just copy paste. If we did this here, well, then we'd be like, okay, hotkey. Yeah, okay, he pressed X. Let's, do the stuff. And okay, let's create a confirm button. Then it would go to this piece of code, be like, oh, yeah, he pressed X, and it would do both of these at the same time. We wouldn't get our confirmation window. So order is important between these two. It doesn't really matter. I mean, I put it down here. I don't think it really matters that you do it down here below this, but this part has to come after this. Otherwise, the two events will happen essentially instantaneously, and that's not what we want. So green check out of here, and let's run this and see what happens. Okay, Rizzo's turn. I'm going to hit X. Confirmation box came up. I'm going to hit X again. Turn is ended. Now I'm going to click X, and I'm going to hit Enter. It's ended. Cool. Awesome. Now, we have 3 different inputs for that confirmation box, and we, the player can use whatever they want, right? Like, this double X, 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 I got that from, like if I know I want to end my turn, just let me double tap it, right? But otherwise, you can click or whatever. And we've got all these inputs so the player can perform the action, right? Click, 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 enter. But we don't actually have anything to allow the player to back out of the action. So let's give the players a way to back out from the confirmation window. And furthermore, we've all got another problem. The only reason that we know what this button does is because we created it. This, I guess a big X is maybe slightly intuitive for end turn, but again, the only reason we know this ends your turn is because we made it. So we're going to make some pop-up text, and we're going to let the player back out of this confirmation window here with the escape key. So let's close this out. And first we're going to set up our pop-up text. Let's go into our cursor, into our create event, and we've got this hover button. Let's add a button. I don't know why this stupid thing keeps popping up because of my autocomplete, but it's ticking me off. Button timer equals 0. Okay. Yeah, set up this button timer with our hover button, and now whenever we're hovering over a button for longer than a single frame, this will count up. So let's set that up right now. Go into our step event. And remember when I set this place thing up earlier and I said I set it up like that for a reason? This is why. So if instance place x, y, O button equals hover button. So like we're going to go through and it's set to no one, so no one. And then we set it to whatever we're hovering over, our end turn button. If it's essentially, this is checking if we're still hovering over the same button we were last step, then button timer plus equals 1. Else button timer equals 0. And if we aren't hovering over a button at all, we need to set our button timer to 0. Button timer equals 0. 0. There we go. Gosh. And we're also going to go down below this button part, right? We're going to set up our escape like we had earlier. So if keyboard check pressed VK escape, 2 of those, and a squiggly at the bottom. So if we got a confirmation window up, right, which will also be if our selected actor state is begin action. You could test for either of those, like if instance exist confirm button. I'm going to go with the state route. So if selected actor dot state equals begin action, selected actor dot state equals idle, and then with O confirm button, not there. What am I doing? Instance destroy. And then when we've done that, we want to, gosh, I'm sorry, I keep forgetting to put my code like in the center or towards the top where it's easier to read. Wipe nodes. So get rid of the box, wipe the nodes. We're going to perform movement range again. Movement range, which will of course create our buttons. So we need to do the node we're standing on. So map selected actor dot grid X, selected actor dot grid Y, selected actor dot move, and then selected actor dot actions. Selected actor dot actions. Great. And now switch selected actor dot attack type case ranged colon break ranged attack range selected actor case melee colon break melee attack range selected actor. And I just realized that this is wrong. Well, it's right, but we need another qualifier here. So if selected actor dot can act. Otherwise, that would have caused an error. Essentially, if these nodes are painted up with the attack range thing and we right click on them, you can attack. So we've got this can act qualifier to keep that from happening more than once, but this would have allowed us to attack and then hit, end turn and then hit escape to back out of it, and it would have drawn the nodes again. We could have attacked a second time through like an error in the code. I'm glad I caught that. That's pretty important. Okay, green check out of here. We're done. Wait up for a second to pause if you're falling behind. Go into our draw event, and right up here at top, after draw self, we're going to do if hover button doesn't equal no one, and button timer is greater than 15. And of course, you can't have a button timer without having a hover button. That resets, or you can't have a button timer bigger than 15 without having a hover button. Again, this is redundant, but I like a little bit of redundancy in case things go bad. Temp title equals, what am I doing? Hover button dot title. Temp text equals hover button dot text. And same thing as before, we're going to draw text great big with our crit font, and then we're going to draw the title with our crit font, then we're going to draw the text with our default font. We're going to draw black boxes around them. So draw set font f crit, and we want to height y equals string height temp title plus string height temp text. Okay, now this height y is, we've got our cursor, like my little cursor here, and we want the stuff to pop up above and slightly to the right of wherever the cursor's at. So that's what this height y is, essentially an offset for us. Draw set color C underscore black. Draw rectangle x plus 20, y minus, what am I doing? Minus height y, x plus 20, plus string width, temp title, y minus height y, plus string height temp title, Gosh, false. Okay, so that's going to set our title rectangle box up above and to the right of the cursor a bit. Draw set color, C_white. Draw text, X plus 20, Y minus height Y, temp title. Now, we needed that to be set in accordance to the string width and string height of our title with the F crit. Now we need to change our font and do separate boxes for our smaller font. Draw, set, font, F default, colon, draw, set, color, C_black, new box, draw, rectangle, X plus 20, Y minus string height temp text, X plus 20 plus string width temp text, Y false. So second rectangle box, draw, set, color, C_white, and draw text X plus 20, Y minus string, height, temp text, and temp text. Okay, so after about a half a second of hovering over a button, a little tooltip will pop up and let the players know what that button does if they don't know. So let's green check all out of here, let's run the game, and let's make sure everything is working. A compile error. Object cursor step over line 248. Symbol expected. What is going on here? Did I break something? I must have really broken something. It's probably involved in this somehow. No? So somewhere we have a errant squiggly. Why is it expecting something way down here? It expects an end symbol. Oh gosh, guys, I'm really sorry about this. What did we just add? What did we just add? We just added the VK escape stuff. You don't have a partner. And you are married wrong. What went wrong here? That's right. That's right. Okay. Ah, this is where it went wrong. Okay. That's what we're expecting. So now this marries to here like it should. This marries to here. This marries to here. That marries to there. That marries to there. Okay, I'm going to leave this open for a second in case anybody made the same mistake I did. I apologized. Go ahead and pause. Green check out of here. And that was probably the only error. Getting something like a squiggly out of place is kind of a big deal as far as... My gosh. Line 58. What does it say? Huh? Number 1 at line 58. Token is undefined and compile statement. Selected actor dot attack type. That should be right. Ranged colon. Melee colon. I can't figure out why that's wrong. Oh, width. Oh my gosh. Switch. Oh gosh. I'm really sorry, guys. I've been running myself ragged trying to re-script this video into 2 videos rather than 1. And so I'm all over the place today. I'm really sorry about that. This is how this thing is supposed to look. Really, really sorry. Okay. Bit over an hour, but we're almost done. Okay. Let's see our tooltips pop up. Okay, that's what this button does. It ends the turn. So I want to end the turn. You know what? Never mind. I've changed my mind. I don't want to end the turn. Back to there. And let's go ahead and end the turn, and X end the turn. We'll go ahead and move Rizzo down here. We'll end her turn. Cool. Everything's working great. Now, next video, we're going to add a whole bunch of abilities for our cleric and our wizard. In fact, I was just going to do a couple, but since it's going to be a whole video by itself, we're going to do more than just a couple. I'm also going to go through, and I'm not sure if you guys have noticed this, but this is a pig pen. This is a complete pig pen. Nothing is organized. So next video, we're also going to do a bit of organization. We're going to make subfolders for our scripts, our objects, and our sprites, and kind of organize things away, because this is getting to the size where it's hard to keep track of. So next video, we're going to add some spells, and we're going to organize things a bit. I'm going to go ahead and beg for internet points, so if you're enjoying the tutorial series so far, be sure to like, subscribe, or follow me on Twitter at Sergeant Indy. Leave a comment below if you run into any problems or just want to say hello. Thanks for watching, everybody.